The day I found out my wife was sleeping with my best friend, I was sitting in a hospital chair getting chemotherapy for stage 3 lymphoma. But what neither of them knew was that I'd been quietly moving money into accounts they couldn't touch, and by the time they realized what I'd done, it was already too late to stop me. The text message came through while the IV drip was slowly pushing poison through my veins to kill the cancer that was trying to kill me. My phone buzzed on the little hospital tray next to my chair, and I saw it was from my wife, Lisa. "Can't make it today. Emergency at work. Love you." My name is Michael. I'm 41 years old, and I'd been fighting cancer for 8 months. Lisa was supposed to be fighting it with me. Instead, she was fighting to get my best friend's clothes off. I wouldn't find out the truth for another 3 weeks, but when I did, I realized that cancer wasn't the only thing trying to destroy my life. Let me back up to how this all started. I met Lisa 7 years ago at a conference in Denver. She was working in marketing for a tech startup. I was a financial advisor with my own practice. She had this laugh that could fill a room and a smile that made you forget whatever you were worried about. Our first date lasted 14 hours. We talked until the restaurant closed, then walked around downtown until sunrise, then had breakfast at a 24-hour diner. I knew I was going to marry her before the pancakes arrived, and my best friend Jake, I'd known him since college. He was my best man at our wedding, the godfather to the kids we'd planned to have someday, the guy who helped me pick out Lisa's engagement ring. He was family. When I got diagnosed with lymphoma last year, Jake was the second person I called. Lisa was first, obviously. Jake drove straight from his office to the hospital and sat with us, while the oncologist explained treatment options, survival rates, and all the ways my life was about to change. "We're going to beat this thing," Jake said, gripping my shoulder. "Whatever you need, man, I'm here." Lisa nodded, tears streaming down her face. "We're a team," she said. "All of us." I believed them. God help me, I believed every word. The chemotherapy started 2 weeks later. 6 months of treatment, they said. Aggressive but necessary. Lisa came to every session for the first month, holding my hand while the drugs made me sick, bringing magazines and snacks, updating our families on my progress. Jake visited twice a week, always with some stupid joke or a story from work to distract me. He'd sit in the ugly hospital chairs and pretend everything was normal while I slowly lost my hair, my appetite, and 25 pounds. But somewhere around month 3, things started to change. Lisa began missing appointments, always with a good reason: work emergency, sick mother, car trouble. Jake started visiting less frequently, claiming he was swamped with a big project at his architecture firm. I was too sick and too trusting to question any of it. The first real warning sign came during my 4th month of treatment. I was having a particularly rough day. The nausea was brutal, and I'd spent most of the morning throwing up. I called Lisa to ask if she could pick up some of the anti-nausea medication the doctor had prescribed. Her phone went straight to voicemail. So did Jake's. I tried again an hour later, still nothing. Finally, around 3 p.m., Lisa called back. "Sorry, honey, I was in meetings all day. Phone was on silent. How are you feeling?" Something in her voice sounded off. Breathless, maybe. Guilty. "Where were you?" I asked. "I told you. Meetings. The Johnson account is being a nightmare." But Lisa worked from home 3 days a week, and it was Thursday, one of her home days. I didn't say anything, but I started paying attention. The next week, I noticed her phone was face down during dinner. She'd started taking calls in the other room. She was working late more often, coming home with elaborate explanations for why she couldn't make my doctor's appointments. And Jake, he'd become mysterious too. Always just leaving the office when I called, always heading into a meeting when I tried to make plans. The worst part was how they both kept telling me they loved me, kept asking about my treatment, kept promising they'd be there for whatever I needed, all while they were sneaking around behind my back. I found out purely by accident. I'd finished a particularly brutal chemo session and decided to surprise Lisa at her office. She'd said she was working late on a presentation, so I stopped by her favorite Thai place and picked up dinner for her team. But when I got to her building, the security guard told me something that made my blood run cold. "Ms. Peterson, she hasn't been in all week. Think she's working from home this week." I sat in my car in the parking lot, holding containers of pad thai and trying to process what I'd just heard. If Lisa wasn't at work, where was she? I called her cell. It went straight to voicemail. Then I called Jake. "Hey man, how did chemo go today?" "It was fine," I said slowly. "Hey, are you busy?" I thought maybe I could come by. I wish I could, but I'm stuck at the office. Big client presentation tomorrow? Rain check? "Sure," I said. "Which client?" There was a pause. "The Morrison project. You know, the downtown high-rise." But Jake had finished the Morrison project 6 months ago. I knew because he'd taken Lisa and me out to celebrate when they broke ground. That's when I knew for certain. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing. How long had this been going on? How could I have been so blind? But then I remembered something that made me smile for the first time in weeks. 3 years ago, right after Lisa and I bought our house, I'd set up what I called Tetewisai Emergency Fund. It started as a financial planning habit. Always keep 6 months of expenses in a separate account that your spouse can't access without both signatures. But as my practice grew and I started making more money, that account grew too. Lisa knew about it in theory, but she'd never paid attention to the details. She assumed it was just a small emergency fund, maybe $10,000 or $15,000. She had no idea it contained nearly $400,000. More importantly, she had no idea that after my cancer diagnosis, I'd been moving money into it every month. Not because I suspected anything, I didn't back then, but because facing your own mortality makes you think about worst-case scenarios. What if I died and left Lisa financially vulnerable? What if the cancer treatments bankrupted us? What if something happened and she needed money quickly? So I'd been quietly transferring funds from our joint accounts, our business accounts, even cashing out some investments. All legal, all money I'd earned, but all safely locked away in an account that required both our signatures to access. An account that Lisa didn't even know the full balance of. I spent the next 2 weeks quietly documenting everything. I installed a tracking app on the iPad we shared, supposedly for security, after I started getting weird spam emails. I started taking note of when Lisa left the house and when she came back. I even drove by Jake's place a few times. The evidence was overwhelming and heartbreaking. They were meeting at Jake's apartment almost every day, sometimes for lunch, sometimes for hours in the afternoon. Lisa would tell me she was running errands or meeting clients, but the tracking showed her at his place. The final confirmation came when I found a receipt in Lisa's purse for lingerie from Victoria's Secret. Expensive stuff, nothing I'd ever seen her wear. The purchase date was the same day she told me she was visiting her sick aunt in Phoenix. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer, David Morrison, no relation to Jake's fake client. David had handled my business incorporation and our estate planning. He was discreet, thorough, and absolutely ruthless when he needed to be. "Michael," he said when I explained the situation, "I'm sorry this is happening, especially while you're dealing with your health. What do you want to do?" "I want to protect myself financially," I said, "and I want them to understand that actions have consequences." "Tell me about your assets." I laid it all out. The emergency account, our joint savings, the house, my business, our investment portfolio. David took notes and asked detailed questions about what Lisa knew and didn't know. "Here's what I recommend," he said finally. "You move fast, you move quietly, and you move everything you legally can before they realize what's happening." Over the next week, David helped me restructure everything. I moved the business accounts to a new bank. I transferred our joint investments to accounts with only my name. I even opened a new checking account and had my business income deposited there instead of our joint account. All legal, all money I'd earned, but all suddenly out of Lisa's reach. The only thing I left untouched was our joint checking account, which had just enough to cover household expenses for a month or two. I wanted them to think everything was normal until it was too late to do anything about it. Then I waited for the right moment to spring my trap. That moment came on a Wednesday morning in early November. I'd just finished what my oncologist hoped would be my final round of chemotherapy. The cancer markers were looking good, and if the next scan came back clear, I'd officially be in remission. I was feeling optimistic for the first time in months, strong enough to handle what came next. Lisa was at Jake's apartment. The tracking app showed she'd been there for 3 hours, and according to her text messages, she was shopping for my Christmas present. I called her. "Hey honey, how are you feeling today?" "Better," I said. "Actually, I have some good news. The doctor thinks this might have been my last chemo session." "That's amazing," she said, and for a moment she sounded genuinely happy. "We should celebrate." "Actually, I was thinking we could have dinner with Jake tonight. Celebrate with our best friend." There was a pause. "Jake's pretty busy with work right now." "I already called him," I lied. "He's free tonight, 7 o'clock at Romano's." Romano's was our favorite restaurant, the place Jake had thrown my surprise 40th birthday party, where Lisa and I had celebrated our anniversary every year. If I was going to end this, it might as well be somewhere with good memories. "Okay," Lisa said slowly. "I'll see you at home around 5. "Perfect. Love you." "Love you too." I hung up and immediately called Jake. "Michael, how's it going, man?" "Great, actually. I think I just had my last chemo session." "That's incredible news. We need to celebrate." "Funny you should say that. I'm taking Lisa to Romano's tonight at 7. You should join us." "I'd love to, but I've got this client dinner." "Cancel it," I said firmly. "This is important, Jake. I need my best friend there." There was a long pause. "Okay, yeah, of course. 7 o'clock. See you there." I spent the afternoon preparing for what would either be the most satisfying moment of my life or the most devastating. Either way, it would be honest. I arrived at Romano's early and asked for our usual table, a booth in the back corner where we could talk privately. I ordered a bottle of wine and sat waiting for my wife and my best friend to show up and lie to my face one more time. Lisa arrived first, looking beautiful but nervous. She kept checking her phone and glancing toward the door. "Jake's running late," she said, sliding into the booth across from me. "He'll be here." Jake arrived 10 minutes later, and the moment he saw both of us sitting there, I knew he understood this wasn't a celebration dinner. "Hey guys," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Jake," Lisa said brightly, but her smile looked forced. "Michael was just telling me about his good news." "Yeah, that's fantastic, man. Really great." They both sat down, and for a few minutes we made small talk about my treatment, the weather, Jake's work projects. They were both trying so hard to act normal that it was almost painful to watch. Finally, I decided to end the charade. "I have something I need to tell you both," I said, pulling out my phone. "I know about the affair." The silence that followed was deafening. Lisa's face went white. Jake looked like he was going to be sick. "Michael," Lisa started. "I don't know what you think. I think you've been sleeping with my best friend while I've been fighting cancer," I said calmly. "I think you've been lying to me for months, and I think you both believed I was too sick and too trusting to figure it out." Jake found his voice first. "Look, man, it's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I interrupted. "Lisa told me she was at work last Thursday, but she was at your apartment. She told me she was shopping for my Christmas present today, but she was at your apartment. Should I go on?" Lisa's hands were shaking. "How did you? We were careful." "You were careful not to get caught by someone who wasn't paying attention," I said. "But cancer has a way of making you notice things, like how my wife suddenly became too busy to come to my treatments, like how my best friend stopped visiting when I needed him most." "Michael, please," Jake said. "We didn't plan this. It just happened. We were both so scared about losing you, and we were spending time together because we were worried and—" "Stop," I said. "Just stop. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending this was about concern for me." Lisa was crying now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I love you, Michael. I never stopped loving you. But you stopped being faithful to me." "What do you want?" Jake asked quietly. "What do you want us to do?" I smiled for the first time all evening. "I want you to understand something. While you two were playing house, I was planning for my future. My future without people who betray me when I'm at my weakest." I pulled out a folder and set it on the table. "Lisa, remember that emergency fund we set up when we bought the house? The one you thought had maybe $15,000 in it?" Her eyes widened. "Michael, what did you do?" "I protected myself. That account now contains $400,000. Money from our joint accounts, our investments, my business. All legally mine, all safely out of your reach." "You can't do that," she said. "That's our money." "It's my money," I corrected. "Money I earned while you were earning something else entirely." Jake leaned forward. "Come on, man. You're hurt, I get it. But this is crazy. You can't just—" "I can, and I did," I said. "David Morrison has already filed the divorce papers. They'll be served tomorrow morning. The house is in my name only. Remember, you insisted on that for tax reasons, Lisa. My business accounts have been moved. Our joint credit cards have been canceled." Lisa's face had gone from white to red. "You bastard! You can't leave me with nothing." "I'm not leaving you with nothing," I said calmly. "I'm leaving you with Jake. Isn't that what you wanted?" "This is insane," Jake said. "You're having some kind of breakdown. The cancer treatment, the stress—" "Actually, Jake, the cancer treatment is going very well. My oncologist thinks I'm going to make a full recovery, which means I'm going to live a long, healthy life, without either of you in it." I stood up and put a $50 bill on the table. "Dinner's on me. It's the last thing I'll ever pay for that includes either of you." I started to walk away, then turned back. "Oh, and Jake, you might want to update your resume. Word travels fast in our industry. People don't like doing business with men who sleep with their friends' wives while they're fighting cancer." I left them sitting there and walked out into the cool November air. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe freely. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal proceedings, asset division, and paperwork. Lisa hired her own lawyer and tried to fight the divorce settlement, but David had been thorough. Everything I'd done was completely legal. She tried calling me dozens of times, sending texts begging me to reconsider, showing up at my office to talk things through. I ignored them all. Jake tried a different approach. He sent me a long email explaining how sorry he was, how the affair had been a mistake, how he'd never meant to hurt me. He claimed he'd been in love with Lisa for years, but had never acted on it until the cancer made him realize life was short. I forwarded his email to his boss at the architecture firm. Amazing how quickly word spreads when someone violates the trust of a client, which technically I had been, since Jake's firm had designed the office building for my financial planning practice. Jake was quietly let go 2 weeks later. The divorce was finalized in February, 3 months after that dinner at Romano's. Lisa got the furniture and her car. I got everything else. But the most satisfying moment came 6 months later, when I ran into them at a grocery store. They were together, as I'd expected, but they both looked tired and stressed. Lisa was working as a secretary at a law firm, making a third of what she'd made in marketing. Jake was freelancing from home, taking whatever small projects he could find. "Michael," Lisa said when she saw me, "you look good." I did look good. The cancer was in full remission. I'd gained back the weight I'd lost during treatment, and I'd started working out regularly. I felt better than I had in years. "Thank you," I said. "I'm doing very well." "Listen," Jake said, "about everything that happened. We were wondering if maybe we could all sit down and—" "No," I said simply. "There's nothing to discuss. You both made your choices. Now you live with the consequences." "Michael, please," Lisa said. "I made a mistake. We both did. But you can't just destroy our lives because—" "I didn't destroy your lives," I interrupted. "You destroyed your own lives. I just protected mine." I turned to leave, then paused. "By the way, Jake, I heard Morrison Development is looking for a new architect for their next project. Big money contract. You should apply." Jake's face lit up for a moment, then fell as he realized what I was saying. "Morrison Development is owned by my lawyer's brother," I continued. "I mentioned your name to him, told him all about your professional ethics and personal integrity. He was very interested in your story." I left them standing there in the frozen foods aisle and walked out to my car, a brand new BMW I'd bought with money from the account they'd never known existed. As I drove home to my house, the same house Lisa had once shared, but which was now entirely mine, I reflected on everything that had happened. Cancer had tried to kill me, but it had failed. My wife and best friend had tried to betray me, but their betrayal had only made me stronger. Some people think revenge is about getting even, but real revenge isn't about making other people suffer. It's about making sure their choices have consequences while you move forward with your life. Lisa and Jake chose to betray someone who loved them while he was fighting for his life. They chose to sneak around and lie instead of being honest about their feelings. I chose to protect myself and my future. I chose to survive. And in the end, that was the best revenge of all. The cancer taught me that life is too short to waste on people who don't deserve your trust. The betrayal taught me that the most important person to take care of is yourself. These days, I'm cancer-free, financially secure, and surrounded by people who actually care about me. I've started dating again, a wonderful woman named Sarah, who works as a nurse at the cancer center where I was treated. She understands what I've been through, and she would never dream of abandoning someone during their darkest hour. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Lisa and Jake had just been honest with me from the beginning. If they'd come to me and said they'd fallen in love, if they'd asked for a divorce before starting their affair, I probably would have been devastated, but I would have respected their honesty. I might have even helped Lisa financially during the transition. But they didn't choose honesty. They chose betrayal. And now they're living with the consequences of that choice, while I'm living my best life. Cancer couldn't kill me. Betrayal couldn't break me. And my secret account? It's still growing, funding a future they'll never be part of. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and being smart enough to protect yourself while you do it. But the story doesn't end there. Last month, I received an unexpected phone call that brought everything full circle. "Mr. Michael, this is Detective Rodriguez with the Financial Crimes Unit. We've been investigating a case involving identity theft and credit card fraud, and your name came up as a potential victim. Do you have a few minutes to talk?" It turned out that Jake, in his desperation after losing his job and his reputation, had been using my personal information to open credit cards and take out loans. He'd kept some of my financial documents from back when we were close friends, and he'd been using them to fraudulently obtain credit in my name. The detective explained that Jake had racked up over $80,000 in fraudulent debt across multiple accounts. He'd been caught when he tried to use my social security number to secure a business loan, and the bank's fraud detection system flagged it. "We have him dead to rights," Detective Rodriguez said. "Multiple felony charges. He's looking at 3 to 5 years in federal prison, but we need you to come in and file a victim impact statement." Standing in that courtroom 6 weeks later, watching Jake in handcuffs as the judge sentenced him to 4 years in federal prison, I felt something I hadn't expected: pity. This was a man who'd once been like a brother to me, now facing years behind bars because he couldn't accept the consequences of his own choices. Lisa was in the courtroom too, sitting in the back row, crying quietly. After Jake's sentencing, she approached me in the hallway outside. "Michael," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know you have every right to hate me, but I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. What I did was inexcusable, but it wasn't because I didn't love you." I looked at her for a long moment. She looked older, worn down by the stress of the past 2 years. Part of me wanted to be angry, to tell her exactly what I thought of her version of love, but mostly, I just felt tired. "Lisa," I said finally, "I forgave you a long time ago. Not for your sake, but for mine. Carrying that anger was like drinking poison and expecting you to get sick. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean pretending that what you did was love." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I know. I needed you to know that I'm sorry, and that I'm glad you survived. All of it." As I walked away from Lisa that day, my phone buzzed with a text from Sarah, the nurse I'd been dating for the past year. "How did court go? Dinner at our place tonight? I'm making your favorite pasta." Attached was a photo of her in the kitchen, smiling, wearing the apron I'd bought her that said, "World's Best Caregiver." That evening, sitting at the dinner table in the house that was now truly mine, I looked across at Sarah and realized something profound. The secret account that had once been my weapon of revenge had become something entirely different. The foundation for a new life built on honesty, trust, and genuine love. Sarah knew about every penny in that account, knew the whole story of how I'd protected myself during the darkest period of my life, and instead of being intimidated by my caution, she respected it. 3 years have passed since that night at Romano's, and I received an unexpected letter last week that put everything into perspective. It was from Jake, written from federal prison. "Michael," it began, "I know I have no right to contact you, but I needed you to know that prison has given me time to understand what I really lost. It wasn't just my freedom or my career, it was the friendship of the best man I've ever known. You saved my life in college when I was drinking too much. You gave me a job when I was broke, and you trusted me with your most precious relationships. And I threw it all away for something that wasn't even real love, just cowardice disguised as passion." The letter continued. "I see the news stories about your business expanding, about your engagement to Sarah, about your cancer foundation helping other families. You built something beautiful from the ashes of what I helped destroy. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm just saying thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Maybe someday when I get out, I can find a way to be half the man you are." I read it twice, then handed it to Sarah. "What do you think?" I asked. She smiled and said, "I think he finally understands what he lost. And I think you've won in every way that matters. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well and being smart enough to protect yourself while you do it."